So at that point, not only did my post blow the fuck up because I looked like Vanilla Ice got halfway through bowling a 2007 Britney and then passed out drunk, but people thought I was copying him. Hi, my name is Alexander Jasper-Jay, and on June 30th I went to this event that provided trans people with access to free haircuts, and it was run by Safety and was done at the Crow's Nest Barber Shop in Ottawa, Ontario. Links to Safety and Crow's Nest will be in the description below. Be sure to go check them out. While you're at it, you should also, probably check me out because, well, I need more followers on Twitter. I'm just gonna be blunt about that. Oh, cool thing. Safety actually followed me on Twitter. We went and I guess somebody must have recognized me there and followed me, and it was kind of a good feeling. It boosted my ego a little bit. Stuff like that doesn't happen often, but in the off chance it ever does happen again, I just want to make sure it's known. Don't be afraid to come up to me and say hi. I don't actually leave the house that often, so when I do get to leave the house, if I have an opportunity to make friends, bring it on. I'm a lonely man. Anyway, so while I was there, I was thinking about hair a lot, which, kind of comes with the territory when you're sitting in the barbershop. But when you're sitting in a barbershop surrounded by other trans people, for me personally, I started thinking about hair and how it relates to transition, and I think that's what started getting me emotional. Hair is a huge way people express themselves. Besides clothes, that is one of the very few ways that we tell people who we are without even having to open our mouths. And for that reason, a haircut is the first step a lot of us take in transition. It certainly was for me, and before I was able to access the medical transition, my hair was a huge source of dysphoria for me. To the point where even after I got my first haircut, I would take pictures of my head at every possible angle I could to see if it appeared too feminine from any angle. At the same time, my mother was equally obsessed with my hair, but in a much different way. She didn't want my hair being too short, and I didn't want to feel dysphoric, so I kept on asking for haircuts, and every single time I got misgendered, it just made me want to ask for haircuts more. I didn't have a job at the time. I was 17, I was in my senior year of high school. It wasn't necessarily the best time for me to be getting a job. My parents kept on saying that they would give me money for a haircut, only it would never come. So I eventually took matters into my own hands and I cut my own hair, and it went incredibly poorly. I only had one pair of clippers and they were older than me. I can't remember when they were ever oiled, so they might not have ever been oiled. So they weren't really cutting my hair so much as pulling chunks out of my hair. But I persisted because once you get started, it's kind of just a little bit too late to stop at that point. But the length, it wasn't gonna grow out anytime soon. It wasn't gonna get to a point where I would think it was too feminine. I didn't give a single fuck what it looked like. I proudly took a picture and I posted it on Facebook. And then I went off to the mall with a friend of mine who helped me give myself this haircut. If you don't know, I started my transition in 2013, and in 2013, I wasn't yet obsessed with social media. So, yeah, I didn't check Facebook until it was time for me to go home, and I was checking the bus times and I saw that I had just a bunch of notifications. I checked them. Oh, I checked them, and they were all hate. These were people I thought were accepting of me, but here they were bashing me over a haircut because it looked like a haircut that another trans guy had, but worse. It looked like I tried to give myself that haircut, but with a whippersnapper, which probably would have done a better job than the clippers, if I'm being honest with you. So at that point, not only did my post blow the fuck up because I looked like Vanilla Ice got halfway through bowling a 2007 Britney and then passed out drunk, but people thought I was copying him. I wasn't. Short on the back and sides, long on top hair. Like every trans guy and his persona has that hair. It is the trans guy cut. It's masculinizing as fuck, okay? They didn't just accuse me of copying his hair though. Apparently I was also copying his transition because I was obsessed with him. Completely ignoring the fact that, again, basically every trans guy has this haircut, and we didn't really talk that much. Like, we had a couple of classes together, we hung out in similar friend groups. I was friendly because I didn't want to be an asshole, but we weren't really even friends at that point. Transgender wasn't a word that was thrown around a whole lot back then. Unfortunately, it has exploded in popularity since, but that was essentially what I was being accused of being, which is ridiculous. The post got over 200 comments, including threats in the course of 3 days, and at this point, I didn't have any sort of social media presence whatsoever. I was not used to this. I was not expecting this. I was sitting on my bedroom floor shaking the entire time, like profusely sweating, because I didn't know how to handle it. Again, the people who were doing these things were people that I was friends with, so I didn't really have anybody to turn to. I have pictures with some of these people only a few days before all of this went down, and we were fine. I wound up actually having to delete and remake my Facebook twice because the backlash I got from cutting my hair out of desperation followed me. It went from one account to the other and then even offline for a couple of years. I actually went to a second cop while on break from work a few years after graduating high school, and the person who served me happened to recognize me from high school. I had no idea who she was, and she just decided that it would be a good idea to go on Facebook after me coming in as a customer to the second cop. She just decided to like spew transphobic dribble on her profile. She actually mentioned the train wreck, I mean haircut. I only found out because we had mutual friends on Facebook and they told me what was happening. All I really did was message her about how pathetic it was, but what I should have really done was shown it to her boss, because she did this following me coming into her shop as a customer. It's just completely inappropriate. It shouldn't have really been that important to her. I mean, I didn't even know who the f she was. If I did, I wouldn't have tipped her. But by that time, it was just hilarious to me. I mean, it was at least like 3 years later, and it was just a bad haircut. Back then though, it sucked. It was my first time dealing with transphobia at this scale, and I, again, just didn't know how to handle it. And this was before I was really in any sort of like online circles. I didn't have any support set up for myself outside of my everyday life. That's really what started me getting like really into the online trans community, because that's where I was able to find support. A girl literally said that she was gonna eat my throat with a knife and fork because of a haircut. A bad haircut, but a haircut nonetheless. Just to really twist that knife though, I actually had a crush on this girl. If you go back to my first video on this channel that is available to watch, I shit you not, I covered Sleeping with Sirens for her. And here she was, threatening cannibalism because she didn't like my haircut. Tiniest bit uncalled for, Dahmer, just a little bit. Honestly, I just felt so messed up by this that for the remainder of the time I went to school until I graduated later that year, I started carrying my key between my knuckles instead of wearing it around my neck in case I got jumped in the hallway. The key was a bathroom key that they gave to all the trans kids at the school. Shout out to by the way, for not only that transphobic bullshit. You shouldn't force people to use the DDU restrooms. Let people use their washroom of choice, but also for doing nothing when I reported the threats that I was getting by other students. Fun fact, by the way, my guidance counselor, who usually I liked, once told me that she couldn't give Rainbow Youth Forum my stage name for when I performed. She was referring to my actual name that I use in everyday life, and this was a very queer event. It's called Rainbow Youth Forum for a reason. Needless to say, they didn't know how to handle having trans students, let alone transphobia at this scale. Anyway, the trans guy I supposedly was copying, the reason my haircut looks similar to his is because he was one of the only people I knew who also cut their hair, and I asked him for advice on how to cut mine, and he told me how, but after I did it, he started bashing me too. It really made no sense to me at the time, but we talked about it since over a lot of alcohol. And often stuff like that has to do a lot with internalized transphobia. This dude used to publicly birth name and misgender me every time I made any sort of progress in my transition. Dude called me it when I tweeted about starting tea, which is why I didn't use my Twitter for a long time, because it was a platform where I knew that he was able to misgender and birth name me pretty easily, and I didn't want my birth name being so public. But at one point I even heard a rumor, and granted this is just a rumor, that he was planning on stealing my testosterone because, as he thought, I didn't deserve it. We weren't friends before all of this happened, and now we're friends on Facebook and everything is okay. That's not the case with everybody in this situation though. For most of them, I used to hang out with them almost every day after school, and I haven't talked to them since. Not only did my relationships with people change at that point, my relationship with my hair kind of changed. Didn't really care if my hair looked like shit, I just cared if it looked masculine. At this point, that kind of changed. I became determined to learn how to have good hair. Which sounds so weird, but it was really just like this petty little thing where I wanted to like prove myself through my hair. It makes no sense now, but it did to me at the time. So first I had to get the mess that was the top of my head fixed up professionally. Unfortunately, while I was doing that, the hairstylist decided it was his job to let me know that he didn't think that I was meant to have short hair, which f***ing sucked. I was stuck in this guy's chair with him spouting transphobic garbage at me with sharp things very close to me, so I didn't feel like I could say anything about it. So then I actually started to learn how to cut my own hair because I didn't feel like I could trust anybody else to do it. It took a while to get good at it, but I was determined. But now every time I got misgendered and I wanted to cut my hair, I actually could. And people stopped noticing that I cut my hair because I cut it so often that it just seemed like it never grew. Eventually though, the misgendering wasn't a constant. I actually went like a full 2 years without getting my hair professionally cut, and even to this day now, it's a rarity for me. Usually I only do it for job interviews or funerals, but I took a chance this time and I'm glad that I did. So sitting at the barbershop today, I started getting a little emotional because as much as I needed a free haircut, while I am fully capable of like making my hair look somewhat decent, it still does get a little bit daunting when it gets super long on top. That's a little bit difficult to manage. I was just imagining the whole time how much it would have meant to me back then when I was like first starting out my transition. It got me a little bit. There were tears. They did not fall, but there were tears. Not only was it an inclusive environment, but to give trans people the freedom to get a haircut when they may not have the means financially or otherwise to do so is amazing. I'm so glad I got to experience that, though I will admit when I first heard of the event I was a little skeptical because I wasn't sure how the whole thing was gonna work. Like, how are they gonna give trans people free haircuts? How are they gonna verify? Turns out there's no verification process. If you show up, they assume that you need a free haircut and they're gonna give you a free haircut. So I don't know when an event like this is going to be happening again, but I will be updating on my Twitter. I do follow Safety on social media now, so I'll try to promote some events that they have. So yeah, I'll be updating people about events like this on Twitter and Instagram. Be sure to follow me over there, and even if it's not your thing, if you don't think you're going to be interested in it, I do have cute pets, so you should follow me anyway. Like, you know you want to, right? And you also want to subscribe. Yeah, I know you do, right? So just go ahead, Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh my god, thank you for hitting the bell icon and turning on notifications. That's lovely. Thanks. You're fantastic. Why does YouTube make this so hard? Anyway, peace out, Scout people. Bye!